So how are you?
I am doing well.
Good. Are you traveling again this week?
Yep.
Okay.
And next week, and that'll be that.
I couldn't remember for sure.
Yeah. So I'm in Waukegan. So I'm okay putting this into our um, podcast because things have settled. And yeah.
Okay.
Uh, so, I, I, I know you know already, but I was able to um, submit my resignation, my notice of resignation yesterday. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. It has been cathartic to say the least.
I understand.
Yes. So I did a very you know what's the word I'm looking for? Just a standard uh, letter of resignation, remembering focusing on all the good things because for the majority of the time that I worked here, it's been a good thing. Uh, the last few, especially the last few weeks, have been less than ideal, based on what my preferences were and what my expectations were, and but I unlike very unlike Jesse Hart fashion, I I I did not light any matches. Not that I think that you burnt. Not that I think that you really burned any bridges. Like I think you could go back to, you know, uh, uh, you know, in our world, your letter to Apple was infamous. But I don't think you'd, if you wanted to go back and work for them, I don't think you'd have any trouble doing that.
No, I typically, the only place that I know that I actually burned bridges was the credit union that I worked for that no longer exists anyway.
You got them started.
Yeah.
No,
um,
it's you. I expect that you saw the writing on the wall.
yeah, well, so the financial industry in general is a whole different beast. Acquisitions tend to happen really all the time, and a small regional credit union was never going to survive a lifetime.
Right.
Um, I They lasted for a while after I left until somebody larger came in and merged, or I don't remember if it was officially a merger or if it was just a complete acquisition. But it doesn't really matter. It's commonplace. You see it all the time. You see it on the big stage with even bigger players. I knew it wasn't going to be a place I was going to stay forever. It just got very untenable when my direct boss, changed at the later stages of my career there.
Oh yeah, I remember one of the first companies I worked for was a small uh, company in Pelham, and they ran youth camps, summer youth camps for churches. So if your church wanted to have a youth trip to one of their camps, that's they did that all summer, like new whole like tons of them, like tons of churches. Like I want to say something like they're filling like anywhere between 500 to 1,000 students at every week at these camps, and I think they ran three camps around the southeast and one children's camp for grade school kids. But the three, so we're talking like 3,000 high school kids every week, all summer. So that's like 8 weeks, 10 weeks. I can't remember.
Well, and it seems like it varies every year anymore.
Yeah, and the first boss I had there, he's on a short list of all time best bosses I've ever had, and then uh, some restructuring happened, and the person that he began reporting to, he did not enjoy reporting to him because he was kind of a, I don't know. I didn't stay long enough to find out because then he left and I left soon after him because I didn't like him either. So I just remember thinking he made dumb decisions, and I didn't, some it wasn't quite busy work, but it was something in the neighborhood of just like you're just giving us busy work for no good reason.
Yeah, that's so the boss that came in to the credit union did some of that and had some choices that were not congruent with general proper practices when it comes to IT security and everything else. And so, yeah, it was just not a place that I knew I wanted to stay as a result, and it made sense to just make it extremely well known for that one when I left.
I would say where I was, I had like at Motorola, I felt like I had a number of pretty good managers. I felt like, and some, several of them in a row, and I was like, that was, you know, that's not typically, some. Well, I don't want to say that's not typically the case. I don't know. It's, you know, it's all over the place. But I was like, I had some good ones, and I had some not as good ones, and my current one I am very much not a fan of, and his response to my letter of resignation just solidified that. I was like, I'm not surprised by this response, and so I sent, I finalized all the details with my where I'm headed on Sunday. So I was like, well, in my head, I'm like, I can give, I'll give them more than 2 weeks notice. That's, I know I'm going. There's no reason for me to sit on this, and it'll make me feel better to, I like when people say, "Hey, you're really great. We're gonna miss you." I appreciate that. Why delay that? And if anything, it's to their benefit that I'm giving them a little more time than than just 2 weeks. So I I think the first thing I did was because I had uh, been offered a role. I applied for an internal role, an internal application for another role, and that was accepted like last week, like Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember. And then so I sent that hiring manager and said, "Hey, regretfully going to have to decline this role. I got a better offer from outside the company, and it really was a better offer. Like I think I mentioned to you like how much better
Yeah.
it was, but and so I really did look. If things had worked out differently, I would have enjoyed working with him. Like he was a person that I genuinely liked, and I think he would have been a pretty good manager. I think he would have been, appropriately interested in my, career development. And so I let him know, and then I like wrote my letter and sent it, and I sent it to my manager, and I copied his manager as well, who was for 10 months I think 10 months out of 2024 he was my manager. So like I have you know I knew him more than just my manager's manager. So um, my manager, like just like not even 2 weeks ago, I was telling my current manager, like, I am unhappy about these things specifically. And, he was just like, yeah, that's just where we're going to be right now. There's no end in sight. It's not the intention, but, I don't have an end date for all the traveling you're doing. And I'm like, I find it really, it makes me really, I really don't want to be doing this. Like, and, and so when he got the letter, it was just kind of like, hey, you got a second? I was like, sure, I got a second. And so he's like, oh, okay. And he sent me a bridge, and I joined. I was like, hey, he's like, what's going on? I was like, I am leaving Motorola. And he said, really? He was like, what are you going to be doing? I was like, I'm going to be working somewhere else. And he's like, oh, okay. And he just did not see it coming. And I sat with that for 24 hours, and I realized this guy he's a former military, and I was like, oh, he's been managing our group as if he's kind of like he's in the military, because it occurred to me, like, it didn't occur to him that my only option is to not follow orders. Like he's like, you go there, you go there, you go there, you do this, you do this, you do this. Kind of like when you're in the military, your option is to do what you're told. And in a company, your option is to do something else. And I chose to do something else. And so that was really um, made, it actually just made certain things click even better for me. And just made, yeah, I'm definitely making the right decision here. And so I said, like I'm actually going to be, like I gave him 3 weeks. My last day will be on the 31st, which happens to be on a Friday, that's kind of cool. And he let's see, I told him, in the letter I said, hey, I want to, I have travel booked for this project. It'll actually allow me to complete the project, and you won't, basically they won't have to find a resource, and I don't have to cancel anything. So, really it's flights that are non-refundable. Hotel, rental car, no big deal, but the flights are not refundable. So, I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, let me do that. And then I didn't book any, today, yesterday would have been the day when I would have booked travel for 2 weeks out. And I obviously didn't book that. And I said, hey, I'm going to use my last week to tie up button up as much as I can for CallWorks projects. So, because I'm leaving people, and I hate that I'm leaving people, but I'm not staying to not leave people. And I was like, I want to button things up and send company assets to where they belong, and make sure all of my expenses are in an expense report so they can get approved and so forth, so that I got none of that over my head. I want to make it clean and safe for everybody. And then today he sent a message to me. He's like, hey, do you think you could go to the next place I need to go to that I would have gone to if I hadn't given my 2 weeks notice? And I was like, in my head, I'm like, absolutely not. But I was just like, no, I wouldn't. I told him, I reiterated, I want to spend that time, doing what I just said I was going to do that last week. And so he's like, okay. So I'm just like, jeez. But my manager's manager, who I mentioned, I copied on the email, he sent a delightful response. He was very much like, basically, we're gonna. Actually, I think I have it right here in front of me. It was so nice that I sent a screenshot to Becca. He's like, well, I'm sorry to hear this news. I wish the very best in your career. I'm thankful for your expertise, support, and years of commitment to Motorola. And he's like, I will miss your humor. And I was like, oh man, that made me feel pretty good. But then at this point, I started telling people, and I got so many people, just saying, hey, I got some WTFs, but every with the exception of my current manager, every single person was happy for me and are gonna miss me, and it was just it made me feel really good. So
very nice.
Yeah, it was a good. It's a better bookend than How I Left Apple.
Yeah. And so we'll start elsewhere on the 3rd. Is that what you had said?
Yeah, I'm going to start on the Monday the 3rd. So, yeah, and I'm excited. I feel good about it. I always have, like, I can't think of a time. I'm just, it's like, I can remember. I haven't had. I would say I haven't had that many jobs in life. I worked at UAB. I guess maybe like 10 jobs, maybe less than that. I don't know. But if you said no, it's got to be less than 10 jobs. Anyway, I just remember this happened, and so I started working at Apple in 2008. I just remember like my first day out in the red zone and thinking, what have I done? I have made I'm standing there. I have made a huge mistake, and turned out it was fantastic. It was definitely the right thing for me. I definitely stayed too long, but it was definitely the right thing for me. And then I just remember when I made my next role change. I changed from one store to another, and I just remember having a moment where it's like, what have I done? Because I wasn't doing the same thing. I was doing something different in a different store, and it was just like, I've made a mistake. And then I went from that to another role change within the store. Didn't even change stores, just changed my role. That was when I went from FRS to Genius. And I remember thinking, you're going to think you made a huge mistake, but give it a few days. You'll be A-okay. And I was like, yep, Same thing happened. Had that feeling of making a huge mistake, and then a few days later, I was a-okay. And then I don't even think that I had that thought when I moved to Birmingham. And then when today I had this moment, I was like, "You're absolutely not making a huge mistake. You are an excited person about this." So, and I really am. And I was just like, "Yeah, it's going to be different, but you know what? It's going to take a few days for you to be like, not even think about the difference." So,
Yeah, I think that's pretty standard.
oh yeah, you had you've had these moments before.
Yeah, most job changes prior to, I guess, prior to Apple, which I'd been through a few at that point, but most of the ones prior to that, it was I don't know if I made the right choice or not, and then uh, after that, it was like almost kind of the whole same type thing where it's just like, no, I know what choices I'm making, and I know I'm making the right choice for now.
Yeah, yeah. So I've told that story about the job changes I made at Apple and be like, what are you doing? Hopefully I've prepared them for moments like that. Not that it's not going to happen to them. They just know how to handle. Maybe know how to handle it a little bit better than I did the first time it happened to me.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that it really comes with just a little bit of experience and age. I think it's
It also doesn't happen when you don't have a job.
Yeah.
Well, or at least you're just over. You're at that moment. You're just like, oh, I finally have a job. So I don't feel it. In the times where it was like I didn't have a job, which was only a couple of times, I was just like, there was none of that.
I don't know if I have anything else to follow
No,
up on the
there's
job
not.
conversation.
There's not really anything to follow up. Yay for me. It'll be fun. I'm excited. Cool
Congratulations
stuff.
again.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you happen to catch any of the game today?
Way too little. It was a bit of an upset, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. I enjoyed watching what little bit I watched. I was in the middle of addressing some things, so I didn't watch as much as I had planned to watch. But Spain played some lovely football.
I'll see if I can find extended highlights for that. And so speaking of, because we haven't had a chance to talk about this, because I was listening to 2 episodes ago, I think, and we were talking about the World Cup because that's what we've been doing, and I asked you if you thought, because I think they were either at the end of the group stages or at the beginning of the knockout stages as we were recording, and I asked you if you thought that the tournament was on the up and up as far as FIFA batting. I think I used a other sports metaphor and said, "Do you think FIFA's batting 1,000 on the integrity of the tournament?" And you're like, definitely not, because nobody bats 1,000 at these things. Yeah. And we mostly talked about how there's variation in how referees, based on what they see and how they interpret what they saw. And I would say, as long as there's a justifiable interpretation of the rules, and sometimes the justifiable explanation of a call can be he got it wrong. We can all agree that he got it wrong, because he just vantage point, VAR, I think we could use the Balogun red card as an example. Did he get it wrong? I think he got the red card wrong. But is it something where it's like, is there a situation or scenario where it's not wrong? Yeah, there is a situation and a scenario where it wasn't the wrong call. Like it's in this realm of it was way too harsh, but it was also, should it be overturned? Probably, not the way that it was, at least, but I feel like it's in the realm of like there was the actual call itself was like bad call, but I understand how you got there. Is that coming? I'm hoping that's coming across okay.
Yeah, I'm following.
Yeah. Well, I would consider that part of like that doesn't mar the integrity of the match. A bad call doesn't mar the integrity of a match in when it is a reason under reasonable circumstances.
I would agree. I think the things that get me are more the things like we referenced it, the Egyptian goal that was chalked off because of going so far back in history to find a foul on the play. We didn't go into a lot of detail on it, but to me, that did not feel like it had the same level of it could be or couldn't, like, even, and I don't know for sure if there's a limit on how far back you can go in the build up to establish whether there's a foul on the play anyway. But when you have never seen it be applied that way, and then suddenly it's applied that way in this tournament, it doesn't feel like there's the same level of integrity. It feels more like you're looking for a reason to make a decision. And that distinction is some of what feels off on some of the calls that have been made
over the last week.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say that the Balogun red card is necessarily indicative of that. You could make that case, sure, but it has the feel to it like that because of some of the other decisions throughout the tournament. And so for me, that's why it feels like it's not. I hate to say not batting 1,000 just because we expect some level of problematic. Like, it's not going to be perfect when you're talking about human officiation anyway. But even using that phrasing, that would explain to me why they're not batting 1,000 easily and why it's not completely on the up and up. Now, is it as deep a conspiracy as what other people have talked about? Or, is there actual match fixing? Or is it just prejudices or biases of the individuals officiating? All of that's on the table as possible explanations. I don't want to ascribe anything bigger to it. It's just that it doesn't feel like it's been an honest tournament throughout.
Yes, I think that's really well put. It has not. The Argentina defeating Egypt does not feel like an honest win. It does not feel like an earned win.
Right.
And I don't, as much as I really like England and I like how England has played this entire tournament, I don't feel that their win over and it's not because I wanted Norway to win, but I don't feel like their win over Norway was honest.
There was some question there for sure. And what was the other one? I was just thinking about it because of the England match and the whole chip in the ball thing, where they ruled a goal disallowed because of a guy's hair touching the ball.
That was Croatia?
Yeah. That felt dishonest.
Yes, it did. And that was, who was Croatia playing? Was that England they were playing? Yes.
I think so. I couldn't remember for sure. There's been enough that I'm trying not to fixate on them. I'm trying to enjoy the matches that I watch anyway. But there has been just enough that it doesn't feel honest.
Yeah. So I don't know that Norway was going to win, but I don't think that. I think the ball hitting the Skycam cable, that was like a pretty blatant. Like, I don't know how that goal didn't get disallowed because of because it dropped different, it dropped in such a way that benefited England, and they literally scored a goal from it hitting the cable.
I mean, so only because I haven't dug into it at all. I want to play devil's advocate for just a second. One, is a Skycam cable something that would actually result in a change on field?
It did. It changed the
No, I mean, from an officiating standpoint. Like, if the ball hits the ref, you stop play, you drop a ball.
Right. Same. That's the expectation there, right?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Is there a rule that would address that? Because I don't know for sure that there is.
Well, so you could say that if the ball hits something that's not a part of play, like the referee, then a drop ball is the call, or
But but is the rule that it's something that's not a part of play, or is the rule that it hits the referee? That's where I was
right.
going with the line of questioning.
I think it's something. I think it's the rule is if it hits something that's not a part of play, because the referee is limited. It's like the goalpost, the crossbar. That's part of play. So whenever that's hit and it comes back into play, you keep playing. What else is out there on the pitch except for the referee? Nothing. But what if something gets in there? I think that's why it's something that's not a part of play, because it allows it's open to something being on the pitch that's not supposed to be there. So, and I think that's how you could interpret the Skycam cable.
I mean, I certainly agree. It's just that I do wonder if the reason that it is so controversial is because there wasn't a way to take, or not that there wasn't a way, that there wasn't a provision to take it into account. But then again, you would think that would just be explained as the answer for the controversy and not that the chip didn't detect a touch.
I don't even think you needed the chip to detect the touch. You could.
Well, I didn't think so, but apparently you did.
Well, I mean, if the chip can detect human hairs the way that it did in the Czech Republic Croatia game, should be able to check, a cable.
Yeah.
So, I'm not bitter about it because I wanted Norway to advance and have a new team win a World Cup, but I'm not bitter about it because it ruined it has ended a 28-year streak. Stat: the team that beats Japan wins the World Cup. Trivia. Not bitter about those things, but coming off the heels of what happened to Egypt in their knockout, how they got knocked out, and what happened with Croatia. Yeah, it feels very dishonest, and
I think that's the best way to sum up FIFA in general. Anyway, but
that you're not wrong. You are not wrong about that. Yeah, and if you've got any questions about that, please check out. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But John Oliver has explained to us why FIFA is not great.
It is definitely on YouTube. I watched it there as well. Anything else on the World Cup?
Despite how they got there, I hope England wins.
It's going to be interesting to see whether Argentina advances and what controversial calls come out.
Yeah. I'm going to expect Argentina to win tomorrow with controversy. And it's not that I have something out for Argentina. It could be any team that feels like, if it was the United States that felt like it was getting preference. I mean, when we saw that the red card got overturned, it just felt like if the United States wins this match, I'm not gonna feel good about, it's not going to feel right. Yes, I wanted them to, but it wasn't going to feel right because there is controversy surrounding it. So, somebody, I was talking to Becca about this, but somebody found a tweet or some social media post from 5 years ago where somebody has predicted. The way what I saw how it was presented to me today was a time traveler has predicted that Argentina will defeat Spain in the World Cup final for the 2026 tournament. And I'm like, yeah, there's enough people in the world saying putting shit out in the world that's not something that I'm surprised somebody found. There's over 8 billion people in the world. Some of them have phones.
I don't remember which I saw. Oh, I know what it was. I saw a graphic that showed Argentina beating England 11-0, I think it was. And the graphic showed Infantino as the player for all 11 on the Argentina side.
Yeah.
And then it showed every English player having a red card in the first minute.
Oh, man. 2006 holds the record for the most red cards in a World Cup match. Man, there were so many cards in that tournament. So many cards.
What was the... I don't remember this one.
There was... I wish I could... So for the 2006 World Cup tournament, there was some I don't I mean, it was talked about on a regular basis. It was like they were expecting there to be more cards for the tournament because based on how they told officials, you know, they basically told officials not to be too afraid, and I think they gave them some guidelines on when you should issue cards, and it ended up being way too many cards, and so they 4 years later it was a much more natural issuing of cards. It's it was one of those things where it was like I can I remember thinking at the time, and I was younger and I was much less jaded of a person, so take this with a grain of salt. But I remember hearing the explanation of why there were so many cards from that tournament being something like they were trying to focus on trying to have a fairer game and trying to appropriately, um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Issue cards, um, and it ended up being too heavy handed, and it was I think it was an overcorrection for something. I don't remember I don't remember much from the 2002 World Cup. So
I do remember some of that conversation. I just don't remember any of the details. So
yeah, I'm fuzzy on it. It's more feelings. I'm trying to speak from the feelings from the things that were explained to me. So that's why I'm not speaking well, but I just remember it was like, wow, everybody was like, there's so many, it's like they went to a card really fast on that one. So, and I think since then it felt like, oh, that was just a one-time thing where it's like, oh, that was a bit too much. And we kind of, it's like, I think they had the right idea in mind and it just wasn't executed properly. Like the way they asked them to execute was just a bit too much. I don't know if I have anything else.
okay, then we can talk about what else I've got.
Yes.
So I know I talked about it a little bit last week about dabbling, and then between last week and now, I've gone well beyond just dabbling and pushed FitInsights into alpha testing.
Yes, I've downloaded it.
I didn't expect to be captivated by it, but at the same time, I probably should have. So what really pushed me over the edge is I decided to create a modular FitInsights engine, if you will.
Oh.
And the engine is essentially the lightweight representation of the top little bit of the dashboard, just the very top graphic. And I'm
the
feeding...
2 circles?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I yawned in the middle of that. The 2 circles.
Yep. And okay. I'm feeding that into MA Journey. So I'm integrating the two apps. So MA Journey, for each training session, will be able to append that data if you have health kit data and give you a link saying, hey, if you like the insights and want to dive deeper, FitInsights is the app for you.
Oh, very cool.
And so that interplay between the two got me excited about the idea. And then that's when I took off full steam ahead. And it's really difficult to make an app that doesn't, this type of thing that doesn't drift data-wise over the course of a day and having to account for that as long as you're doing like proper calculations.
Explain
what I mean by that.
Explain that a little more.
So the first few iterations, the morning numbers would change over the course of the day as other data was fed into calculations and or backfilled or anything else. And then the intensity and load, all that stuff would also drift over the course of the day. So I had to figure out what is appropriate for essentially snapshotting that point in time as, nope, this is the cutoff for the morning. And what does it mean to freeze that snapshot? And what does that actually impact as opposed to just allowing a computer to calculate a 24-hour time frame on kind of a rolling basis, you know? And so what it comes down to is just that making it feel like something you can trust, where you actually have legitimate calculations at any snapshot in time, was a lot more difficult, a lot more challenging than I expected it to be. And it seems like the kind of thing that would be really simple. You would just say, cut it off at 8 a.m. or something, right? You like freeze the snapshot as of that point. But then that doesn't account for people who have a different general sleeping pattern. And I don't want a user to have to set up a whole bunch of settings to get the actual insights from the app. I want the app to be smart enough to understand it. That's the whole point. And so it should be able to take health data that you already log, and without having to have the user do a bunch of other stuff, provide these insights that I'm wanting to provide. And so it was challenging to figure out how to create a snapshot that wouldn't then be misleading, but also wouldn't be susceptible to slight point drift over the course of the day. And like, I don't think it would have been an end game killer if the numbers changed by a couple of points, but to me, that conveys a lack of trust in calculations. So it's like trying to solve the perception problem was challenging. Yeah. I think I figured it out.
Oh, okay. That's good. That didn't seem... Do you feel like that took a long time, or just like... Or was it once you realized what you were having to figure out, do you think it felt like it was like... Felt reasonable, or even, felt quick?
Yeah, I think it felt reasonable. It was one of those things where it's just something I didn't take into account until I saw it happen. And then I had to figure out why it was happening. And so there was more that being the process and being difficult to understand at first. Because, again, in my head, it was like, well, if I, wake up and then I have this data at the time that I wake up, why the hell is it changing 3 hours later?
Gotcha. Well, I'd like to say I think it's a really pretty app. And, especially if you love data, which I do. I think I have, I follow a subreddit called Data is Beautiful. And when this is available, I want to post stuff from, post some screenshots from here. I think that would be pretty cool. Or so as not to use my own data, I could share your screenshots. Anyway,
yeah, I did have to come up with an answer for that too.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me is like I don't know how to use your app. Like I opened it up, gave it access to HealthKit, all of it, full data set, and I was just like I can look at individual things and be like, yeah, I know what that is. I know what everything is. I'm not sure how to use it.
Yeah, I had to try to figure out what would be a good interface design for understanding things, and I don't think I'm quite there yet. But if you notice, everything has a little icon in the top right corner. If you tap that, you actually get an explanation of what it is, how it's calculated, all that kind of thing. Because to me, it's important that you understand those metrics. But I don't know that that's as discoverable as I would like it to be. And if I change that, I don't know that it's as aesthetically pleasing as I'd like it to be. And so I'm stuck in this kind of odd, which way is the better way to handle it?
Well, I think that if you have a splash screen that you're required to go through that's not too many steps, that's the way to go. Like
probably
I think for something that's this data rich, that's going to be the way. I think there should be an onboarding, and this is how you teach someone. You teach someone to use how to use the app.
The documentation is actually pretty detailed for an app too, because I don't normally do a lot of documentation, but I made sure that everything had a general explainer of what it's for.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that the person who's going to want this app has a higher than average rate of wanting to read documentation, but that's not going to be everybody.
Yeah, and I don't want a user to have to stumble on it in settings either.
Right.
But I didn't build out. There are a few things that I hadn't built out until today. That's not even in the most recent stuff that's available yet. But like for end users who can't see any of this at the moment, the general premise is that it takes your information from Apple Health and calculates stuff related to fitness to provide you insights, hence the name FitInsights. And obviously there are a lot of players on the market There are a lot of different ways to go about it. There are a lot of that use proprietary signals. There are a lot who use their own hardware. It's a very saturated market. And the thing that always bothered me about the different options that I tried was that to me it wasn't clear how different numbers were presented and how they were useful to me as an end user. Like I could have my interpretation, but nothing really explained any of it. And so the whole point of me doing this app is to have that explanation that I want so that I get a rich understanding of this is what the app is telling me, this is what it's informing me of, and this is how it translates to my general overall fitness level. And so there are three main tabs. There's a dashboard, which gives you just at a glance actionable understanding of your overall recovery and overall training load in relation to your calculated baselines. And it does give you kind of a graphical set of gauges at the top, if you will, that are your recovery, like your capacity for training that day, your snapshot of where you are now based on background activity, workouts, whatever else that occurs over the course of the day, and a like training load type of indicator to let you know if you're going to continue to train harder or perform additional workouts. This is kind of what is available to you to think of from a capacity standpoint. And none of it is hard and fast, cut off here or any of that. It's all guidance. And I specifically, even though all of the calculations and everything else about it scientifically backed, I still want to make sure that it's understood there are too many variables to account for really specific guidance with a limited subset of data. Even though I'm asking for all this data from Apple Health, it's still a limited subset of data. And so the dashboard is your at a glance. I don't have to dive into anything too deep. I can see like what my recovery was like overnight, and I can know kind of what I want to target for the day. That's its purpose. You can scroll through history. So if you wanted to see, how a day ended, compared things, just historical data, interest, all of that's available off the dashboard and presented in the same general way. The second tab is what dives deeper. It's your overall insights as a result of your training and everything else. So you've got things like your calculated heart rate zones and the amount of time that you've spent in them for the past 3 days and the past 7 days. There's a 30-day view as well. If you do a lot of interval training where you've got hard and light exercise intensities, you've got some polarization information as well so that you understand your training balance between them. Bunch of other stuff, that all of it is meant to give you a deeper dive into what your general metrics tell you about your fitness level. And then the third tab is called the Engine tab. That got rebranded today. And it provides guidance on cardiovascular fitness with some general guidance on how you might improve or things that you might want to do to maintain or to improve. Like it's not, I'm trying to avoid having it be called anything or look like anything that's coaching because it's not active in that way, but it is something that tries to give you some actionable insights into what else you might want to do with relation to your aerobic and cardiovascular fitness. The current third tab is just a straight correlation of metrics. Pick any two metrics that you have in health and you can create a correlation just for fun. I decided I liked having that kind of whimsical thing in the app, and so I did move that into settings as a separate thing that you could go into and continue with just random correlations if you want. They don't mean anything, but it's just a fun little extra thing to put in the app.
Oh, totally.
And so that's the app in a nutshell.
Interesting. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the update with the engine, but yeah, I thought the correlations was actually I really did like that. I thought that's a fun little tab. I think whimsy is the right word.
Yeah. And so I
as
didn't
you
want to
said.
lose that for sure, but I also didn't want it to be a main focus of the app because I didn't want people to be confused by, well, why would I want to play around with this in the first place?
Right. This is definitely a data rich app. That's pretty cool.
I did also, so the engine tab includes, there are two generally accepted positive fitness tests for uh, VO2. Well, I don't remember the two names. I have the write up in there about both of them. But essentially, at any point that you want to perform one of those tests, it provides you the information on how to do it. You plug in your numbers, you calculate it, and it shows you your calculated VO2 versus your um, implied calculated VO2 from health.
Mm.
And I know I don't know enough about it to be able to really explain the differences, but I understand that there are differences. Because even Apple Health tells you that the VO2 max number is an approximation.
Yeah, I think it has to be because I think you got to wear one of those mask things where you're actually breathing into it. Well, I don't know. I don't remember how VO2 max is calculated. So let me quit while I'm behind on that explanation.
Yeah. It has been interesting because me being me meant that I had to force myself to have a bad night's sleep as well so that I could see the
Oh
ramifications in the app
no!
because I wanted to know that calculations were actually representative of what I would expect. So,
Tell me what you did for a bad night's sleep. How did you accomplish that?
it involved a decent amount of bourbon and staying up late.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I have to expense this.
I didn't think about it that way, but that's funny. It's an absolutely legitimate business expense in this case.
See, I was like, I kind of halfway thought you were gonna say I just drank too much water that it was gonna require me to get up, but no, it's even better. I think
Yeah,
it's a be-
no,
I think it's a far better test than drinking too much water. That's just the prehistoric alarm clock.
yeah. So the benefit of understanding how it impacts the body is that I knew that would change my resting heart rate and overnight heart rate and heart rate variability because alcohol does that. So yeah, I knew I could make some adjustments to the data that was recorded and see what the ramifications were.
Nice, nice.
I am looking forward to a good night's sleep, though.
So that was last night. I take it.
Yeah, yeah. Technically, the past two nights. So
Oh no.
last night was that particular night. The night before, so over the weekend, we did a quick beach trip down, and
Yes.
I had a decent little bit of sunburn. Not horrible, but it was just enough to be uncomfortable. And so the night before, I didn't sleep real well just because of the sunburn factor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that wasn't
That was
enough.
unplanned.
Yeah, and that also wasn't enough to make it horrible sleep. It was just not as good a sleep as I would have liked.
So you can't expense the trip as a.
Oh, I could. I could.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't take a lot. It
Yeah.
does not take a lot. So, do you want to talk about your trip at all? Because it sounded pretty cool.
There's really not a whole lot to talk about of it, though. I mean, we can. I just didn't want to drive down and back that distance in one day, so we made it an overnight instead. And anybody familiar with geography, to Birmingham to the Pensacola Beach area, it's about 5 hours. And so we drove down, stayed in a hotel overnight, got up in the morning, went out to enjoy the beach, and came home. Well,
Nice.
after we got some seafood, of course.
So what's your and I assume this was for a birthday, yeah?
Sort of. It was more a matter of I just really wanted to do something over the summer that was not just taking Jacob up to his grandparents. And I know that we currently aren't at a point where we're doing long stretches of travel because of work-related stuff. And so it made sense to just make it part of the weekend.
Okay.
So partially birthday, partially just because. And partially because it's been years since we took Jacob to the beach, and
Oh,
he
okay.
didn't remember it, and so it
Okay.
gave a chance to take him out there and make sure that he does grow up remembering it. Because
Okay, yeah.
I love being around the water too much not to have that be something that he can recall easily.
Okay. And that's like just barely inside of Florida, right?
Yeah, like it's
I'm
it
looking at it on
might
the map
be.
now.
So we actually went to Johnson Beach on Perdido Key. So if you search for Johnson Beach, you'll see exactly where we went. We've been there a couple of times. It's a national park.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see it right now. I see Johnson Beach Road.
Yep. And
Excellent.
part of why we did that is because I didn't even think about it at the time, but because he's technically a fourth grader, since he hadn't started fifth grade, fourth graders get into national parks free for some strange reason.
Okay. So he's right. He's rising fifth grader, right?
Yeah. I mean, technically, you could say he completed fourth grade. He's in limbo, so he would be a fifth grade. But
I think the rising is a good way to. That's because you're technically out of fourth grade and you're technically not into fifth grade. So, when I heard someone say rising, you know, pick a grade, I was like, okay, that feels good to me.
yeah, I was actually waffling back and forth on whether I wanted to go to the beach or go up into the mountains, and what made the beach win, other than what I've already said about the, just making sure he got some beach time again. But what made it win is if I was going to be hot, I would rather be hot at the beach than hot in the mountains.
Yes,
And
because we don't have mountains high enough that you wouldn't be hot.
yeah, and so I think we'll probably plan probably a slightly longer weekend excursion around maybe Columbus Day or something. Like what we're trying to do is because of the limitations with certain companies, and it's somewhat self-imposed, but let's just say that small businesses and long stretches of vacation just aren't in the cards quite yet, and that describes both me and my wife. And so from a general just time and availability perspective, the long stretch just doesn't work. Like we would both end up having to do work on vacation, and that's just, we don't want to do that. And so
yeah,
we're trying to figure out ways to still get in 2-3 days here and there, and have like mini vacations instead of the one larger vacation that we would normally take.
Right. That makes sense.
And hopefully in another year or so, we'll be back to the large vacations again. So,
all right. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I think that, I haven't, I was gonna say Becca and I haven't really done any trips by ourselves in a few years. I think, yeah, like it's been almost 3 years. And so, just with the change that's going on, I feel like, there's going to be a place to be able to take maybe a bigger trip for both of us together, just the two of us. But I also want to take my kids on some trips because, like, I really feel like I've wanted to take them. Like, I feel like, it'd be fun to go after Christmas, go somewhere where it's warm and, go to, just, easily, how easy would it be to go to, uh, 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 Cancun or Cozumel or something like that. I know it's like a really popular thing, and so like it's going to be more expensive because people do that around that time of year. But I'd like to do that. I've never done that before personally or with my kids, and I think it'd be fun to do that with them. I think it'd be a cool thing. So I've been thinking about that.
yeah, we were talking about a couple of different other options soon as well, and all of them were thinking of things that we needed to do with Jacob, specifically just to give him some experiences. And so, like, talking about maybe doing a trip out west and actually enjoying some time there. Like, for all the times that I've been out west, I've never had a long stretch of just free time for me. It's always been interspersed with work or something else going on. And so it'd be nice to have just a week or two dedicated to just whatever I want to do going out there.
I definitely would like to do that because I was thinking about that as well because the every time I've been out west, there has been a mission. It's never been just, hey, we're gonna do this. Like, we did have. I mean, it was for fun, but one time it was scouting. The first time it was 3 weeks. The first time I went out west, 3 weeks for work. That was Apple. genius training, and then uh, then Becca and I scouted out. You know, we were scouting places to elope, and then we eloped, and so we never, you know, we've never really been out there just to like let's just have fun. So I definitely thought about doing that because we had elements of that, but no, not we haven't done it without having some sort of goal in that had to be accomplished.
I think that's all I've got on those, actually.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about woke TV or?
We can. I don't know that I have a lot. It just struck me as funny. So, yeah, I guess it was yesterday. Yeah. So Emily had never watched Star Trek in any of its television forms, and not surprising. Just the difference in age and everything, and interests over time and everything else. So we started watching Next Generation.
Yep, I grew up with that. I didn't watch it much, but
So I grew up watching quite a bit of the original series, and then I watched almost all of the Next Generation. Well, I'm sure I've seen all of them over time, and it caught me off guard because I never. Yeah, obviously, we didn't talk about woke TV at the time because it didn't exist in the sense of being
no,
attacked.
that term wasn't there.
Yeah, but it struck me as hilarious that if you were to recreate it, today, it'd be yelled about how woke it is and how. Same thing with MASH. Actually, if you go back and watch MASH, and you actually pay attention to the messaging, it's the exact same thing. And it made me start thinking about how many TV shows actually have that same type of feel or premise or ideological backing to them, and how hilarious it is that the people who are generally the most outspoken against those types of things grew up watching and enjoying those shows.
Yep.
And just how overly hypocritical it is. Like, for whatever reason, my mind never really made that connection with Star Trek. And I'm sure it's just because I obviously have a certain set of principles and ideological philosophies anyway that are in alignment, and so I don't think it odd. But as we watched it, it hit me, and it was hilarious to me. And so I put it in the notes because I thought, this is the type thing that we would mention, and maybe we have an actual discussion on, and maybe it's just a mention in passing.
Well, something that didn't exist, I was a kid. I remember when Star Trek The Next Generation was, airing for the first, new episodes. And yeah, what wasn't around? There weren't any outlets to tell you that it was woke TV.
Yeah.
So, there were people that were putting out a message that they wanted to put out, and you either got it or you didn't. You said, they didn't get it, and it made me think of like all the people that didn't get Fight Club. Like that's where my head went when you said that. So,
I mean, it's not surprising, really. I think the part that I found most hilarious is there's some very specific examples of people that I know who loved those shows until something was pointed out later. For example, one of them loved MASH until they heard Alan Alda speak about politics and then hated it. And it's like, how do you make that switch? You know what I mean? Like it's no different than saying that you love Kid Rock's music until you hear him talk about politics. If you like Kid Rock, you like Kid Rock. And if you don't, you don't. Whatever. Same thing with an actor or any other performer or any entertainer. There's nothing about that status as an entertainer that conveys any knowledge or wisdom or anything else beyond any other person.
Right.
And so it's hilarious to me how that change has occurred.
Yeah, I often, it occurred to me that when somebody says, hey, I want to see you be an actor. I want to see you be, you perform your art and I don't want to hear you talk about the things that you want to talk about. And it's usually because I want to like what you do, but I don't want to hear what you think.
Yeah.
because if you like the performer and you like what they're saying, do you tell them? No one ever said I like what you know. If they agree with what they're saying, has said, oh, don't use your platform to talk about this thing that I already agree with you about.
Yeah.
Maybe, but maybe one person has said that. But I mean, there's over 8 billion people, but yeah.
It is something that I know at one point I was in that realm of, hey, I think you should just stick with being an entertainer and not talk about stuff. And then I eventually realized the error of that way of thinking,
Yeah.
because
So
it's no different than, hey, I like you as a person, but I don't want to hear what you think about things.
right. Right. And so it's like now it's like, when you think about Kid Rock saying, dumb stuff, it's like, yeah, okay, I needed to know that you were dumb. Or if you or you're like, I needed to know that I liked what you say. But it's just kind of like it's when you're in that word, it's like, I like you as a performer, but I don't like what you're saying. That's the one that's like, it's like, what do I do with that?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to just don't listen to what they're saying and just enjoy what their performance is.
Right. I did that with Bill Cosby. I was like, I loved him on the Cosby Show. I like his stand up. At this point, it's like I'm choosing not to uh, uh, consume any of his works because he's a bad person. And if I did choose to consume his work, I was like, you know what? Bad people make us laugh. And so, after he passes away, then I'm like, now I can consume his work because he's not getting any of the money. Same thing, like there's a movie that Roman Polanski directed. I absolutely will never buy because until I would never buy it while he's still alive. After he's dead, I'll see if it's where does it go, because I don't want to support Roman Polanski.
I can understand that take for sure. It feels more reasonable than the extremes. Like there's a reality of a lot of bad people do things that you just don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
And so because you know about something bad someone does, taking steps to not aid them still feels reasonable. But if you enjoy the works that they do, depriving yourself of enjoying that entertainment it doesn't serve any purpose.
You're only hurting yourself.
Yeah.
You're only denying yourself.
Making it a point where, like, we'll use Bill Cosby as an example because I love his stand-up. And so I've got a number of CDs. I have no problems going back and listening to those. There's no...
You've already paid for them, at least.
And there's no money flowing, and I can still listen and enjoy them and not feel bad. Or if I catch The Cosby Show on a rerun or something, that one might be a little bit iffy, but I'll let it watch because they're going to play it either way.
Well, to be fair, nobody's playing The Cosby Show right now.
True. And it's not like I have live TV that I pay attention to where I would catch a random episode either. So it does break down a little bit. But MASH would be a good example. If there was something there, I have the entire series. I could just watch the series that I have because it's already been paid for and it wouldn't be creating additional royalties.
Right.
So if I had The Cosby Show, that would be the similarity or the
yes,
going back and watching it because I have it already. That would be comparable.
I didn't mean to be the EpiPen guy.
Surprising. I actually didn't have much else beyond that either on the TV.
Yeah, no,
and I knew I wouldn't have a lot. That's why I wasn't overly concerned about making it a full-blown topic as far as a lot of notes and everything.
Right. I was going to say, like, it's like, I grew up and I, like, later recognized that, this was, you could consider it woke TV. If it was what was on today, if we had that term, if that term existed then, that's what they would have called it. And, I think we all know someone who was like, oh, you liked woke TV because you didn't know. And maybe some of that sank in and affected you in a positive way. I
don't know. My entire developmental experience
wasn't enough.
Well, I do wonder a little bit how much that consistent exposure reinforced, like for our generations, the other messaging that we heard and everything else that kind of became this ingrained be a decent person type of drift in general. I do wonder how much that type of television programming might have aided it. But I think it was going to be inevitable even if that didn't happen. Just like I think it was going to be inevitable that the previous generations were overwhelmingly more, I don't know if I want to say biased, but I think it kind of fits, more biased towards certain other ways in which things should be done. I think that's a semi-nice way of putting it. And I think it's just a nature of generational upbringing and what they were around and what was acceptable versus as you get into our generations, more and more of a willingness of being rebellious and saying that's not fair and trying to figure out why. You know, I guess what it comes down to, the transition from kids should be seen and not heard to kids are going to be kids. I think that's kind of the shift that I think made the change.
Yeah. Devising unqualified opinions, applying filtered thoughts, discussing distilled feelings. Jesse and John on the line, talking life 1 week at a time. Good takes, bad takes, all the same. Real talk, always in the frame. Monday to Friday, we come through. One mic, two minds, nothing fake for you. Throw it out, break it down, turn it over, spin it around. Filtered thoughts. Jesse and John, we got a lot. Distilled feelings. Talking life, talking real things. Filtered thoughts. One more thought, then we lock it off. Listen in every week, Jesse and John, conversation deep, various topics, same two guys talking through the highs and lows of life.